And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, you ever heard of the pulling down the slot machine and hitting the 777? Well, today we're going to try to figure out that code. No, we're not going to Vegas, don't get all excited on me. We're talking about code 777. Originally came out in 1985, was reprinted somewhat recently by Stronghold Games. This is that version, where it is a deduction game where you're trying to figure out what three numbers are on your tiles that you cannot see through deduction and hearing the answers to questions. Pure deduction here with a little bit of randomness of the cards. Let's take a look. I'll show you how it's played, and I'll see you on the other side. What you're trying to do in this game is find out which three numbers are on my stand, because you don't get to see those. When you're setting this up, this is my stand. Somebody else places the numbers on there, just as you can see on the other three people. This is a 4-player game. Cool thing is, even if you're playing with 3 or 2 players, this is what the setup would look like. I'll talk about that later. But what you're trying to do is figure out what you have. Well, how do you do that? How a turn works is when it's your turn, you will take a card, you'll place it over, and you will read the card. You'll say, question number 9, how many colors can you see at least 3 times? And I would look around at these. Now remember, I can't see mine, and they know that I can only see these 3. So the perspective is different. How many colors can I see at least 3 times? Well, I see a red, and a red. And that's the only color I can see at least 3 times. So I would say 1. The answer is I can see 1 color at least 3 times. Now this is what comes with the game. Actually, they're pretty terrible. They're not even color-coded. This was a bad design for our 25th anniversary for sure. This was terrible. They got smart, and Stronghold Games actually printed these up. That's on Board Game Geek, and I actually went one step further and I laminated these, and I used dry erase markers because we use this so much. But just to show you how this does, if you look even a little closer, this thing actually has the number question, the actual question, and all the results. So you have a lot of places to note take here and all these different pyramids. This is a good player aid. And I'm glad Stronghold Games has put this up. I wish it came in the game, but you can just print it off on your own. So what you're trying to do is you'll mark off on the question. So that was question number 9. And I would mark down 1 there because that person had seen 1. And I would just mark stuff off. And you're marking off, I like to mark X's for the ones that I've already seen, because there's only, each one of these is 1 tile. So every tile that's out there is going to be here somewhere. So I mark off X's for ones that I can see, and then I mark off with numbers ones that I've deduced based upon the number of the question is kind of my way of doing it. Then it would be the next player's turn, and they would continue to do the same thing. Now when it's this player's turn and he asks a question like, on how many racks is the sum of the numbers 12 or more, we know that he's looking at 1, 2, 3, our 3 racks. But what if he said 2? He's looking at this rack and my rack, and let's say he says 2 of them are 12 or more. Well, we know that this one's more than 12. We know that this one's more than 12. So we know that the 3 numbers that I have here do not add up to 12 or more. That gives me a huge clue. I might not be able to just cross off stuff here, but if I keep that note, that might come in handy later as I start to narrow it down a little bit more, and I know which ones they can't be. Now this will continue, and once the cards run out, you just shuffle them and redo them again. This will continue until someone guesses. And what they have to do is they just have to guess the numbers. It doesn't matter on the colors. Some of the numbers actually are in 2 different colors. For example, 6 green, 6 pink. Some of them are different. And the shapes are there for help the colorblind. So it's a circle and an X, but that's just for colorblindness. This person, if they were guessing, all they would have to say is 5, 6, 7. It wouldn't have to be in order. They could just say, I have a 6, a 7, and a 5. And if they're right, boom, they're right. They get 1 point. These they would actually, if they're right, they get to actually see them, so they can see not only what numbers they were, but what colors they are. And then they would put them out of play, and someone else, their neighbor, would put 3 new ones here that they cannot see. Now that gives more information to the rest of us. It's a little built-in little catch-up mechanic. And things would start again. That would be their turn. That would be this guy's turn. If they are wrong, if it comes around again and this guy guesses again, and he says 2, 5, 6, and we go, no, you're wrong. He does not get to see them because you do not get any information for doing something bad. We would put, again, 3 new ones up, and he would have to sort of start over because his pyramid's going to be pretty messed up at this point. Now, if at some point someone's refreshing a tile and there's only 1 left, what happens is all the tiles that were brought from out of play get brought back in and they get reshuffled. And what this does is it pretty much makes everything that you knew beforehand on your pyramid almost be worthless. Because now when you see something, you won't know if it's the one that you haven't seen or is it the same one you'd seen twice. So when it gets down like, you know, there's only a few tiles left, it's time to start making some good educated guesses, because once somebody else is going to do it if you don't, and once that happens, you're pretty much going to have to start over and it gets to be really difficult. So this person got 1 point, as we just saw. The first one to 3 points is the winner. And just to show you some more of these questions, like, do you see more red or more pink numbers? Do you see more brown or blue numbers? Do you see more green 6s or yellow 7s? How many racks do you see on 3 different colors? On how many racks do you see 3 consecutive numbers? How many colors can you see? All different things like that. So it's a lot of very interesting things to keep you thinking, and there's definitely some good questions to make your brain smoke. All right, well, you know I love deduction games if you've watched my video, so how does this one stand out? I will be keeping it, so that should tell you enough, and I do really like the game. The game's not perfect. There are some issues with the game, but I think it's really good. First of all, it's a very difficult deduction game. If you don't want your head to smoke and you don't want your head to blow up like you do if you play Sleuth, don't play this game. This is a very difficult deduction game, I think, for me at least, and I like deduction games. So let's talk about the things. It's very interesting. It's one of those ones where you got to play it a few times to really get your note-taking skills down, because, and this falls, well, this is it with all deduction games like this. Many of them, most of them, if one person gives you some wrong information, you could be completely gone. So, and this game, I think, lends itself to going down that road a little bit more than other games, because the information isn't always just yes or no or very straightforward. Like, how many different colors do you see, or this and that. Sometimes it's not that easy. You got to look 3 or 4 times to really understand the question. They're worded tricky sometimes, and you really got to make sure that you're clear and the person that's answering the question is very clear about what's the answer they're giving you, because if they give you a wrong answer and you do something, you go down somewhere, you could be playing this for 20 minutes and get your thing wrong and for your not own fault, and it's almost impossible in this game to trace all the way back to figure out the error, especially because you don't get to see the tiles. So be wary, if you don't like the fact that one mix-up can screw up your game, you're probably not going to like this, because I think this one lends itself more to that. But if you're very clear with the questions and kind of taking the people through it, newer people, I don't think it will happen as often as you might think, but it's possibly still there. Now, it's a very hard game when you get down towards the end where the tiles are there and they get reshuffled and you have to pretty much start all the way over again. So it's like a mad rush at the end to try to guess before all those tiles go back. It's a pretty unforgiving game. If you guess wrong, you almost have to start all the way over with just what you can see, because then you don't know what's right and what's wrong. So it's a very difficult game. It's a very unforgiving game. So if you're not up for a very big challenge, you won't like it. If you do like very tough deduction games with very little wiggle room, very little room for error, and you really want to make your head smoke, this is a great game. I would like to see a little bit different maybe with because you know there's some randomness in the questions. Sometimes you're just not getting the question that you need towards the end, and sometimes you get the question that you need finally, but it's not the right person that should have asked it. The player, you know, across from me, oh man, if they had that question, I'd really get what I need. I would have liked to have seen some things been a little bit more streamlined with this version of the game. Like maybe you get 2 cards and you pass one to the player to the left and he asks the question. Maybe everybody gets 1 token. Instead of just making the player to your left ask the question, once per game you can pass that token to someone to make them answer the question. And now they have 2 tokens and they sort of pass around to kind of even it out so no one always has to get less information. I just think there's some ways that could have been streamlined to think of different ways of asking the questions. To give you a little bit more control, not have it just be purely random questions and who asks what. And I think that would have made this game go from very good to amazing. But anyway, that's it for now. Great deduction game if you like this style of deduction game. Code 777.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.